Hi, teachers. I don't know if just an impression of mine, but teachers sometimes they seem like religious people. Just because somebody is religious, society tends to invest an aura in them of sanctity, of automatic trust for these snakes. And in reality, most teachers in my life were backstabbing, false, uh, problem problem people. You know, dramatic, vindictive people. Teachers are in their profession. They tend to pass on the abuse that they received when they were studying, and looks like they try to take revenge on innocent students just because they were abused. If you are a victim of abuse, they say we tend to become abusers. Maybe our education teaches teachers or future teachers to be abusers, and that shouldn't be the case. It should be exactly the contrary. And they ask themselves why there is a school shooting, why there are school shootings here and there. Isn't it obvious? Then they blame Marilyn Manson, they blame the movie The Crow, they blame rock music, heavy metal music, but they never blame themselves. They never blame their abusive ways, psychologically abusive ways. Why? Because if they do that, they might end up losing their job, losing their authority, losing their aura of sanctity that society gives them blindly. Narc 3, the PhD doctor that destroyed my PhD course. I first saw him when I was in the first year of my course, which enables me to teach Portuguese language, English language, and their literatures in Brazil if I want to. First year, he went inside a room and he started to give those classes. His classes, he would just sit, everybody would sit, and he would just talk. And the discussion was, what was literature? And one week the same way, what was literature? And we would say literature is this and that, and he would say, no, it is not this, it is not that. Then the other class would be the same, the other class would be the same. It didn't even look like he prepared his classes. Then he was a student in my classroom was not paying attention to him, was paying attention to her friend as they were talking between themselves. And then this narcissist, he asked the whole room, this friend of yours, she always likes to talk so much like that. To which she replied, oh yes, especially when the, the class is really bad. Uh, of course she was mad because he started trying to humiliate her. She responded the way she should, I guess. And then they say, I didn't remember seeing it, but they said that his face turned red. And then he asked the whole class, is this the opinion of the whole class? And everybody was shocked. And because of that, nobody gave any answer. So he understood that as a yes, and he simply got up and left the room and never came back. So we stayed without literature teacher for a long time, actually, and we were really you know, we didn't learn what we should have been learning during the time. And when another teacher came, the teacher had to start from zero. But anyway, it would be the same thing because his classes, he was not giving good classes anyhow. So it just shows that this narcissist is a completely unable to relate to people, to deal with people in society, completely unprepared to be among people, to be in society, and to have respectful interactions with everybody. And then used to watch him here and there. Years go by. I did the master, never saw him in my life again for 5-6 years until the doctorate, I guess you call it. A few interactions that I remember before becoming his student, you know. First, it was in a class that his wife was giving. His wife gave fair classes, okay. But some days he would visit and then his wife would stay silent. The silence was deadly. Okay. When he came, she would completely shut up, and he was the only one who had the right to speak in the class. And you could see, I saw that the other students were very afraid of speaking. So it was the most ridiculous classes I ever saw. Because I guess they already knew his punitive ways. And unfortunately, I committed the mistake of speaking. And his answer was very kind of abusive indeed. We were talking about the something related to the variety of ethnicities in the United States. in the in especially in movies or and in culture in general. But I use the example of movies, in which there's lots of different people in some movies in order to balance the races. But then he answered with a kind of a violent tone. Okay, he disagreed with me. I don't remember much, but the only thing I remember is you were based in movies. But there was also the tone of his voice and his body language. He didn't even look at me when he said that. He was like he was like a lawyer who dismisses your opinion and everything you say with a disdain that is kind of revolting and angering and hurtful. You were based in movies. That was the kind of teacher I was going to have to deal with. Other times he spoke in public. He would be so theatrical and false that he would fake good, uh, when people are not able to deal with other people, but then they fake charisma. But the fake charisma becomes so ridiculous that it is theatrical. It is like a bad actor speaking to the whole classroom. And I would notice that. I would say to myself, man, this guy is ridiculous. But he has a lot of power in that university. He has a lot of influence and power. That's the people in power. Unable to relate to people, violent, cheaters, and ridiculous. Then I used to think that that was just an impression, that I should be professional and not have preconceptions and prejudices, and I asked him to be my supervisor in my work. And then he said he would, and of course I had to manipulate him a little because I knew he was kind of a star there. So I said, I'm going to just, since he's kind of a star and show off, I'm just gonna say some sweet words to him and he's going to accept being my supervisor, because I was being betrayed by another teacher already. Okay, so I had to change professors, and I wanted him to work with me because he was the one who was in the right field of literature, and only literature, not history and philosophy or other things that was not I couldn't deal with. And then I had a friend, her name was Patricia. She also was being supervised by him. She told me at one time that he gave some innuendos to her, that in a playful way, that he sent some innuendos to her about well, we could solve this problem. They were having some problems there, and he said to her that, well, we could solve these problems because you are a very beautiful woman, and we could find a way to solve these problems. And she said that by his body language and other messages that he sent, that he was coming on to her. And this guy is a PhD doctor, probably in his late 50s. He's married to Regina, which is another PhD doctor. They have a lot of influence in that school, that university. And he's married, and he was coming on to her. And imagine that must not be the first time that he tries to seduce and or uh, get some favors from students in exchange for better, who knows, better grades or removing of obstacles to the works. And she said, well, I like Regina very much. I would never do that to her. Regina, when she said his name in the classroom, she would give us a smile of pleasure. She would look down and give a small smile. And I found that very peculiar. Because, well, he's just a person. But the fact that he has a lot of power there. And because she's married to him and he's such an asshole to deal with, she loves power too. She's kind of a ridiculous woman also. She was one of the teachers that had to read my mastership work, and she went to my defense, my dissertation defense, with a very ridiculous red and white dress. I never saw her using that shit. I even considered that an insult. You know, I remember when I was talking about narcissist having no style. Well, I don't know if she's a narcissist or not, but to me, any person who associates with a narc must be and stays with a narc for long periods of time. Must also be a narc or must not have good character. So, she dressed ridiculously. They have very poor style, as I spoke. And this guy also sometimes he uses some hats that are just ridiculous. You can even say doctors, you know. They just look like not even clowns, you know. Clowns have even better sense of style and dressing style. I'm not the king of style myself, but these people, they try to portray something that in the end they portray the exact opposite of what they try to show. This guy, this doctor, was one of the last times that I saw him. He was in the classroom. Lots of students were just showing their research, and his students were speaking about their respective works, and he had to be there. Everybody in the room, his students speaking and stuff. He didn't sit in the front, he sat in the back. He put his laptop in the chair, in the armchair. I don't know how you call those chairs that you have the table in front for students. And they say that you should never write or deal with the computer stuff while anybody is speaking or talking, because that is considered very disrespectful. But this narcissist was uh, writing in his computer the whole time, looking down at his computer. It was like he was alone in the room, with a face that looked like an ass, a neutral face, a face without expression, and he was just working while people were talking. So the whole thing about teachers saying you don't write when other teacher is speaking, pay attention, blah blah blah, does not apply to the narcissist. Respect is not in the narcissist vocabulary. He was very happy doing his own thing, ignoring everybody. That was so disrespectful. It was toxic. I looked at him and I felt bad emotions. That's why we say it is a venom, because these bad emotions release bad chemicals in our bodies, stress chemicals, and it's venom. That's why they say it's toxic. It's because these chemicals cause cancer. These chemicals make us grow old faster, makes us stressed, even sadness.